Hey, my name is Greg with SwitchButtons.com, and today I'm going to teach you how to rip apart your brand new Joycons 2 and install the world's first custom Nintendo Switch 2 buttons. Now before we get started, I just want to briefly mention a couple years ago I set out to make the world's best Steam Deck buttons. Got a whole bunch of press, a whole bunch of people really like them, and now fast forward to today and I have a whole warehouse doing this full time. Now we don't just clone the stock buttons with silicone, that's kind of lame. Instead what we do is rip it apart, meticulously measure with calipers, recreate it digitally, and then modify it to our heart's content. This allows us to improve things over time and fix things that people don't like about the stock hardware, and blah, 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 who cares? Why don't we just take this thing apart and get to it? Here's what you're gonna need to take apart your Joycons. Your Joycons themselves, a spudger. I like to have some tweezers handy for ribbon cables. You're gonna need both a Phillips screwdriver as well as a tri-wing. Nintendo was really weird about this and I'll explain later, but that's what you'll need. And for me, handy screw tray with our logo on it that we sell, and of course, some buttons. So let's get to it. I'm gonna rip these open and show you what you're in for. It's not too bad, honestly. The first Joycons were much worse, so there's no ribbon cable that passes through a middle frame, none of that. So these aren't really that hard to do. I'm gonna just toss this and this. Anyway, let's start with the right one. Here we go, right Joycon. Now, what you're gonna see is a tri-wing here and a tri-wing here. We're gonna start there. Hopefully, I grabbed the right tri-wing from that first clip. Let's see. Looks like I did, awesome. So, Nintendo did some weird stuff with this. Their choice of screws is kind of interesting, and you're about to see why. So as you take those two screws out, you're gonna see that you're gonna wanna be able to pry it open. Sorry, hold on, focus, there we go. So grab your spudger and note that the frame will start to pry here and here. Your goal is to get the trim piece right here off. It's stuck on with adhesive. So what I like to do is grab the spudger, put it in between the parts of the shell right here, and just pop it up. So you see how that works like that? Now the rest you can do with your hand. This is just stuck on with adhesive. We're toying with the idea of selling replacement adhesive because sometimes stuff like this happens. Check that out, perfect timing. So anyway, it's just stuck on with some adhesive, nothing that crazy. And here's where Nintendo gets weird. Another tri-wing, and why did they just make this one, like either pick a tri-wing or pick a Phillips head, making me switch all these screwdriver heads, kind of annoying. So anyway, grab the first tri-wing, remove it, and then we'll switch to Phillips. There we go, Phillips out. And now the next step is super important, and this is so you don't break a clip. Trust me, I've broken 4 clips by now. So I'm gonna show you what the inside looks like, and then I will show you how to deal with it. Right around this area is a clip. I'll probably pause the video and show you. Now the other side of that is easier to show you. It lies right here. And how they're worked, it's like a tongue and groove. Sorry, I broke my wrist. I don't really have a lot of like dexterity to rotate. Picture this happening. That's the clip, so don't break it. Anyway, the goal here is to put your fingers here. You can start to see that the shell will separate. If you pull it just straight off, that's where you're gonna break a clip. So the way I've discovered is you can kind of, see what I mean? It's stuck. So you kind of separate this a little bit, and then you want to take your hand, place it on the top here and slide that way while also prying up. So I'll show you, I'll try my best to show you from the top down view. Up, slide it down. Come on, little tricky. I'm using my thumb here. So up and down. Now, that worked well. I didn't break anything. Hey, so as I'm editing this, I'm realizing it's a little disjointed only because I explained the clip thing, and then I guess when I was filming this originally, I didn't really account for that. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I was taking it apart in the next clip. I lost this plunger thing right here. It just sits in there and it fell out when I did something. So take note of that. It's not a big deal if you do, just find it. And the other thing is I'm just, the next clip, unplugging 2 ribbon cables. So that's all. As a bonus, check this out. These are the new Holos. They are installed. They color shift, just like our Steam Deck ones. They're super popular on the deck, and I think they look sick. Anyway, back to the install. See ya. Let's move on. The next step is to remove this right trigger right here. Super easy. Take a spudger. You can use the flat part, you can use the pointy part, and you just want to put it in and pull up. Now, don't do this a little aggressively because there is a spring right about there that you're going to want to remove now. I throw it in my screw tray and that's it. That's the hinge part. So your next step is we're going to be removing this battery frame, the plastic piece that holds all the battery stuff. It is super easy. It's just a bunch of screws. I'm going to freeze the video right here and you can see the overlay of where all the screws are. These are all Phillips screws, so keep that in mind. Start right here. I start right here with this piece. It is the frame that holds that magnetic lever that fell on the floor in the beginning of this video. So here's where Nintendo gets a little weird. They do a whole bunch of screws and a whole bunch of different sizes, but as long as you follow this video, you'll be fine. The second screw is a black kind of like tall screw. And then you can just take this frame here and pull it out and you will be good to go. Boom. Set it aside, keep it, I don't know, somewhere safe, and we'll continue. More screws now. We got this one here. Something to note, and that will keep track of the screws for you, is that this step, all of the screws are silver. All right, so your next step is another one where you might be losing parts if you're not careful. There's 2 springs in this trigger mechanism here, so you have to be careful to just don't yank them and let them fly everywhere. So I'll try to show you this easily. This whole frame is now free, minus a ribbon cable underneath, so also don't rip it out. You can go like this, rock it up, remove this piece entirely, and watch out for those 2 springs I told you about. Just don't lose them. Set everything aside, and now you can rock this forward like so. And that's your first ribbon cable. It's right here. I'll point at it with a spudger to make it a little easier, right here. And hey, while I'm here, I might as well flip this tab open real quick. So that's all you need to do to separate the 2 pieces here. Small ribbon cable, not that big of a deal. Set everything aside and we will continue on. The next step I like to do is remove all the ribbon cables in this area. There's 3 of them, so I will show you that now on camera. Lift up the little doors, don't be too aggressive, and then use your tweezers to pull them out. So now that we have all the ribbon cables free, it's time to take this board off, and then hey, you're at the buttons already. See, not too bad. I'm going to freeze again to point out where all of the screws are for you. And that's great, let's take them apart. All of the screws in this step are black. And there's only one sort of weird part about this, but it's not hard, it's just something to note, I would say. It's kind of like a timing thing. The screw in this part right here is tall, just so you know. Now once you removed all of those screws, the timing part comes in. Also, this is a piece of adhesive right here. It does kind of get in the way, so you can just peel it up. I'm using my hands. That just frees it because this piece right here for the joystick stays in place. So anyway, the weird part that I was talking about isn't that weird, but this part and this part are together. And how you do this is you just peel this away, but it tucks, see this tab here? That tucks underneath the board. And once you do that, pry the board up and it's free. So here's how the buttons look, you know, the stock ones before you lift the membranes up. One of the weird things that Nintendo did, which I was surprised, is this membrane here has adhesive on it. Whoa, whoa, weird. Anyway, just something to note, nothing crazy. Don't lose these membranes. They are a little small. I'm just removing all the buttons now. All right, so let's grab our buttons and get to town. This set I'm using right now, we're not sure on the name 100% yet. Thinking of calling it Super Switch, I think, Super Switch. The whole goal is to color match the accent colors. So, something to note about these buttons is the face on the back of them is always going to be pointing up in the shell. They're also labeled, so the A button here is labeled A on the back, just to make things easier. You can keep these on the membrane at first to use as a reference. It's just flipped, obviously. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm just gonna put them all in real quick. The plus sign button also has an arrow pointing up, so you know that the orientation is correct, pointing up. And grab your membranes for every button that's not ABXY. There we go, membranes are in. Now, we're gonna get to these. They are adhesive backed, so just peel and set them aside. I'm gonna put them in the box, the switch buttons box, real quick, because why not? So yeah, you just wanna make sure your buttons are kind of centered. One thing I'd like to note here, and why I believe they have the adhesive, is all of the buttons, including the stock ones, have some wiggle room to them. I think I can demonstrate that a little bit. There's a little side-to-side play, and that's on purpose so that nothing scrapes against the shell. We tightened the tolerances a little bit more than Nintendo did, but it's still there and it's a performance thing. So what you want to do, the only issue you could ever run into here with this adhesive thing is make sure that the legends are straight, because I've noticed with the Y specifically, that's the most noticeable, there's a tiny bit of wiggle room here. So you can have a Y that's like a little bit off, and that's just because you didn't align this straight with the adhesive back. It's not a very noticeable thing. Again, we made our tolerances a little better, I would say, than Nintendo did, but you just got to make sure when you're doing this step to make everything straight. Now everything checks out over here, so you're ready to move on. Now the hard part's done. Time to reassemble, and then we'll tear apart the next one. So you just want to grab the same board that you did and this piece. And remember I said they go together? This is the perfect time to do it ahead of time. So this piece and this piece, I'm holding this, here's your reference point. This piece and this piece, the board goes in between them, like that. That's the only weird part about this step, is you have to kind of rock it in, except flipped, because we're putting it in the shell. So that's the only thing, and make sure your ribbon cable here goes through the board itself. I like to let it sit and kind of tweezer it in like so. And then rock everything into place. It might take a couple tries. Got to make sure your membranes are all seated, etc. And once it feels like everything's good to go, put that little adhesive back and throw the screws back in. Reminder that all the screws on this step are small black screws, except for the tall one that goes right here, but they're all the same color. don't forget the one that's hiding kind of near this ribbon cable. It's easy to forget that one because of the ribbon cable. And last screw here, and then we will move on. Now check your fitment. This is a good time to look at if everything looks good on that end. So far, I think it looks pretty good. So the next step is to plug in the ribbon cables. The opposite of what we did to take them apart. Grab your tweezers, make sure everything goes in correctly, make sure that all the little doors are closed, and just make sure everything's straight. It's very easy to kind of half plug them in, and you will have issues obviously if that's the case. So this part, you just want to be careful. Oh, and one other thing I forgot about is, I don't know if you've played Mario Kart. Most of you probably have. It says B on the motherboard, AKA the best. Where is it? See it? It says B. The best character. Anyway, the hardest ribbon cable to get back in is the joystick one. It's just at a weird angle. Now the next step is to grab your battery frame and that trigger that we set aside before. Make sure you have both springs in there. And I like to plug in the ribbon cable first, but in order to demonstrate how this works, I'm gonna quickly show you this step first. This is the battery frame and the trigger. You just have to make sure the springs line up with the pegs, and then it'll sit in place, and it will fall off, but just make sure that those two line up. Now I'm gonna quickly plug in the ribbon cable first to make things easier. All right, now that that is plugged in, it's upside down currently. I'm going to grab it, rotate it a little bit, and do that step I just mentioned where you line up the trigger. And then once that's lined up, you can seat the board or the battery frame onto the board. And then this thing's not going anywhere. Make sure it's clicking well. Hear that? Check it out. That's how you know it works. So we'll grab all of our screws and get to town. So this first screw I like to throw in at this step is this top one. It just kind of locks in. Make sure this assembly doesn't go anywhere, and then I move on from here, etc. Now that I have these three screws in, I'm going to grab this piece, this one, and drop it into place. The curved area here, see how that's curved? It goes towards the outer edge, so like so. Boom, boom. The curve goes around this orange part here. So then you grab one long black screw and put it in the deeper section. Like you won't be able to really see where it's going, but it's going right there. Screw that in, and then one silver screw on the other side here. Now, if you're like me and you dropped that piece initially, now might be a good time to grab that, so I'll be right back. The next step is grabbing this little spring and dropping it into place. I like to pinch it, get it on the frame, or get it on the hinge, and get it in there. Cool, see how that fits? So the next step, the spring fits into the slot right here. There you go. This one feels good. So now that you have that locked in, it's time to grab that piece that I dropped initially, the little lever that pushes this little peg out for the magnet thing. So drop that into place. It will look like that. I mean, it only goes in one way, so there you go. And now I like to take the back frame and this ribbon cable for the battery and plug them back in. So both ribbon cables go in at this step. Be careful, the ribbon cables are small. I've broken one in my life so far. So get those in, boom. Look at that. Wow, so exciting. And then kind of do the opposite. Remember, we want to get that clamp to meet with this part here. So I like to drop it in so that you get that little lever in place. As I say that, it falls out. Hold on. This part's a little weird timing wise, but you just drop it in like so. Get it like loosely in. See that? Not really together. So you want to get it so that it looks like this. This piece is completely unhinged. The bottom half is about like so. And you want to put your finger right around here. That's where that clamp is. And press down while sliding that way at the same time. So if you press down, see how it does this? Then you can slide it in and that clip is now engaged. If you break that clip, there will be some play here and it's honestly not that big of a deal, but it will be a little creaky. Check it out, creak test, no creak. So that's it. That's how you know you did the clip correctly. And now we just have 4 screws and this one's pretty much done. Same as last time, I'm gonna get the Phillips head screw in first because I don't wanna switch cables or screw things back and forth. So I got that and now we're switching over to tri-wing. One here, one on either side here, and then we are good to go. Make sure you pinch the halves together while tri-winging. And another thing to note is your controller is going to want to connect. You know, that's a good way to test that you plugged everything in correctly. Now the last step, let me seat this troublesome adhesive real quick. Cool. So the last step is pretty easy. You just have to put this trim piece back on. And again, if you mess it up, we're probably going to be selling replacements. I start at the bottom here and just kind of, it'll clip into place pretty easily. This step is super easy. And then that's it. You have one Joycon done. Congratulations. The next one's exactly the same, just mirrored. I'm gonna still do it for you, but if you're confident that you don't need that half, then you can do it yourself. But we're gonna move on. So we have one complete, pretty cool. And now on to the left Joycon, blue edition. I don't know why, I think it's because my very first Joycon I took apart was the blue one. I actually prefer to take this one apart. It really doesn't matter. They're both the same, but anyway, same deal. Tri-wing, and then we pull off the trim piece. I'm gonna attempt to go a little faster this time now that you're comfortable, but we'll see. I mean, I'm just recording this in real time, so I'll edit it down anyway. But screw here, grab your spudger, put it in this back part. You know, try to get it a little separated, just a little bit. I try to hold it with my nail like that and then get the pointy side and pop. And then you just peel up. You fight the adhesive. And sometimes it goes on the shell, sometimes it goes on this. If it goes on the shell, it actually gets in the way because it's in between the 2 layers. So good time to grab your tweezers and put them back. They do have little spots on here that it fits in. It's like in between 2 lines. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just adhesive. And Nintendo really liked to put adhesive in a lot of this stuff this round. The Pro Controller 2 is pretty annoying. Remember, one more tri-wing and then we're switching over to Phillips. Now I'm gonna save you the spiel about the clip, but reminder, don't break your clip. Put a little, you know, pry up a little bit on this side here so that it's got some wiggle room. Place your finger here, like so. Lift up a little bit and push that way. Boom. You don't force it. If you force it, you might break it, so don't do that. This time, this thing didn't go flying, so that's cool. I didn't drop it, the trigger thing. So you can set it aside instead of putting it on the floor. Now I'm gonna quickly unplug these and we're on to the next step. Set the back part aside, and reminder, we're prying this piece off next. Spudger in here, boom. Be careful of the spring, remove that. And now we're going back to screws. Here is the screws on this one. I'm pausing the video. All right, let's take them all out. A reminder, I like to start with this plastic frame here and get that out of the way first. Now, reminder, don't get cocky and just pull this off. There's a ribbon cable under here. So remove this so you don't lose springs, and then rock it back like so. Grab your spudger, pry open the door right here. I guess you can't really see it. And then you can remove the battery thing. Set it aside, and we're on to the next layer. While I have the spudger, I'm gonna quickly remove all of the other ribbon cables and also that sticker that kind of just gets in the way. All right, now here's where all the screws are that you're gonna have to remove for this step. Reminder that all the screws on this side are black. It's interesting, the board says B, again, best Mario Kart character. It says it up here now, and some dude autographed it. Look at that, XC, who's that? If you autographed this, let me know. Pretty cool. Quickly get all the screws out, and then we're at the buttons again. A reminder that the board itself rests, it like nestles in with this blue trim piece, so you can kind of pull it all up at once. You can also just pull it aside like that, that's fine. And then we're at the buttons again. Congrats. Now, one thing to note for these, I put a U and a D for up and down on the backs. And then for left and right, it's not like the orientation like the left button here. It's left when you're in the back. So technically that's the right button, but I have it on the left side because it's just an ease of use to install situation. So left and right, and then D for down, U for up, and all of the arrows will be in place. That's what it looks like. Up, down, left, right, face facing up, and same as the other side, the minus sign button, what do you call that? Has an arrow pointing up. And that's it, membrane's back, and you're ready to reassemble already. So there you go, that's what it looks like. And let's quickly grab the board. So the next step, remember, these two pieces fit together, and you also have to get the joystick through this big hole right there. So joystick thing through first is kind of how I do it, and then I leave this side up, and I just try to slide the board in as best as I can. And then boom, time to put some screws in so that everything stays flush. Now the next step is ribbon cables. Reminder, be gentle, these ribbon cables are fragile. Now grab your battery board, this thing, the trigger, and drop the ribbon cable in first before you do anything else. Plug in the battery board like so, and then we're sliding the springs onto the little posts, and then you just kind of set it in there. Put some pressure on there just so it doesn't go flying, and grab one of the silver screws and drop it in right here. Haha. Now grab the remaining silver screws and put them back where you originally had them, and you'll be good to go on this step almost. Plastic frame. Reminder, the curved part here goes along the curved trim piece. So that's how you know where it goes. See that? Look at that. Tall screw goes in here, tall black screw, and then the other screw is silver. Now we're grabbing our hinged spring situation, dropping it in place, squeeze it a little bit to get it on the hinge, make sure the little legs fit in that groove. There you go, see that? And then we just drop the trigger assembly on and it'll snap into place. Cool. Test everything, make sure it feels good. And then grab your back piece and plug in both ribbon cables. Now it's time for the lever. Set it into place. It only goes in one way. Test it out, make sure it works. And then, reminder, the clip thing. So I'll get it into place first and then I'll show you kind of how we want it to be. It's like this, offset, offset. Put pressure here in the middle where the clip is, right in the middle, and then slide it that way. If you did it right, it'll sort of hold itself together and there won't be any creaking, and then you're ready to just throw the last screws on the trim piece and you're good to go. The last screws are 1 Phillips and 3 tri-wings. Trim piece on and we are all set. Boom, check that out. So here's how they look like installed. I'm gonna grab a switch real quick and show you. That's how the switch should have been, huh? Check it out. That looks good. Now, if you stay tuned, I'm gonna be installing some TouchProtect. They're textured skins that add grip. They look cool and they're on Amazon as well as switchbuttons.com. Here's some of the examples. Let's go with some carbon fiber. That's nice. High quality vinyl, sourced from proper channels to get real deal stuff. Nothing cheap here. Same stuff they wrap Lamborghinis and stuff with, but they're super easy to install and they've been around since the PS4 days. So there's over thousands and thousands of these have sold on Amazon and the like. They are very well regarded. So how I like to do this is I will take the small button, plus sign or minus sign, and try to line it up with that first. Don't press too hard, just kind of get it in place. Pinch the corner a little bit. And then I use this straight edge here as a guide. So what I'll do is get that plus sign in place, do that. And then I like to make sure the buttonholes look pretty good on the top half, but not press too hard. And then work my way down because, you know, I just dropped it real quick to show you. Those can be off, so you need to start light. You make sure the holes line up here, and then I kind of skip the middle area and make sure the holes on the edge are in place first here. Use the straight edge and then slide out that way. The vinyl has air release channels in it, so you shouldn't get any bubbles, and that's what the front looks like. The back is a little more freeform on purpose, just to make things easier to install. So you just kind of, same deal, put it where you think it would fit. I like to do a little on the curved edge here, and then line up that straight edge, and boom. You got some grip on the back, they look a lot cooler, and I'll head on to the next one. Look at that, I made that. Anyway, same deal with this side, nothing too bad. And start at the minus sign this time. Try to get it lined up as best as you can. Kind of tack it down in this upper corner and then work your way down, making sure that this hole is lined up as well. Straight edge on the side, work your way out. Get all of the air out. And boom, you got a carbon fiber Joycon 2. Same deal with the back, nice and easy. Line it up wherever you feel fit. I, again, like to do a little on this top edge here. Make sure this straight edge goes all the way down, boom, boom, and that's it. That's how I like to do it. You can move it down a little bit if you like, but that's just where I found feels the best. And then your switch looks really freaking cool. Look at that. These are available amazon.com/touchprotect or up on switchbuttons.com as well. There's a bunch of different designs. There will be more as time goes on. We kind of rushed to get all of them off to Amazon as fast as possible. But yeah, they are super popular with the Steam Deck community, PS4 community, PS5 community. They've been out for a long time and they're really awesome. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's probably kind of long, but I did that on purpose. I wanted to make sure you do it right. It's really not that hard to do. And it looks sick. Your Switch is now the coolest Switch out of all of your friends. Drop on by our Discord. We are doing a giveaway if you're watching this early of a fully customized set of Joy-Cons of your choice once we're like fully launched. So drop in on the Discord and drop your email over on switchbuttons.com to enter that giveaway if you're watching this at the right time. Thank you again, and I'm gonna go try Donkey Kong Bonanza. I bought it today. I didn't really do anything with it yet, but it's in there. Look at that. All right, take it easy. Bye.